Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Dr. Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner, share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina.
Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina is more than a podcast. We are an entire 501c3 nonprofit, and one of our favorite programs is Children of Widowhood Secret Santa. This allows us to help children who have lost one or both of their parents, and that process is done by the remaining parent or guardian applying on their behalf. Go into our website, widowhoodrealtalkwithtina.org, select an event in the drop-down menu, and then select Children Widowhood Secret Santa. Apply between June 1st and June 30th of 2026. This allows us to help and sponsor you. If you are an individual, organization, book club, or group that would like to sponsor a child or an entire family, please email me at widowhoodrealtalk@gmail.com. This is our opportunity to take this podcast on an individual basis to people who need to know we are here and you are not on this journey alone. Our guest today, Jackie, is going to share her book with us, a memoir of love, loss, and living grief, Losing Katie. I'd like to read a little bit of this to you to understand the conversation that we're going to have today. Losing Katie, the journey to your death began 3 years ago in early June. Overnight, you almost fully recovered from the first stroke. It might have been a mini stroke, but it still took its toll, leaving you exhausted throughout each day. After that first stroke, we had many deep conversations, rereading health documents and confirming what to do and what not to do, and what wanted to be done in the event of a medical emergency. We reviewed our end of life wishes. This conversation today with Jackie is going to go further into this journey. Let's get into this conversation now. Hello, Jackie. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hello. And I don't know if I want to be welcome to the Widowhood.
Answer. When people say thank you, I'm like, and I usually say so thank you, because I'm like, what is going on in the back of your head that you say thank you to that? So excellent answer and very truthful. So we're headed to the right start. So how does widowhood look for you?
Oh, wow. I'm 6 years into it. And at any given time, it still feels like it was just yesterday.
Okay.
So one thing that widowhood does to me is it changes time. Like if I think, okay, I started seeing this doctor 2 years ago, then I have to stop myself and remind myself, wait, Katie died 6 years ago, and I started seeing the doctor 2 years before she died. So I've had to, kind of add that stop and add that time in, because I think it just messes with your head and your memory.
It does. And it's interesting that you mentioned the timeline of Katie's transition of measuring things. My children and I talk about how their dad's passing is like Amadeus. It's either before or after. It's like everything has now become that point of measurement for that, for my children. And I can relate to that. And the time loss is very interesting because I was not prepared for that reality. I was prepared for sadness. I was prepared for depression. I was not the other things. Were you thinking that these other things would be part of what it would be like losing Katie, or were these surprises to you too?
I've studied death and dying. Um, and I have been with other people at the end of their lives. I'm kind of one of those odd people who is comfortable with death in terms of being there with someone. All of those things did not prepare me at all for Katie's death. Her death just completely blew me out of the water and changed my world. I wasn't prepared for the amount of exhaustion. In the early days, I would have to take I could do something for 2 hours, and then I'd have to take a nap. And then I could maybe go for another 2 hours and then take a nap. And that's how it was for probably the first 2 or 3 months, until gradually the naps started getting longer. Time awake started getting longer between the naps. The memory part, I kind of was aware of it, but the way it affected me surprised me. It just, simple things that you used to remember with no problem. All of a sudden, it's like, did I brush my teeth? I think I brushed my teeth. I'm pretty sure I did, but I can't really remember. So it can go down to something as simple and daily as routine as brushing your teeth or taking any medication you take. So, yes, there were some surprises there.
Thank you. For me, I had envisioned those were other people having that. That's not how I was going to handle it in the reading and the things that I knew before my own actual experience. It was hearsay in my mind, not that the likelihood of having the same experience was the highest percentages I now know it is.
Yes. True. We find out a lot of those things once we go through it ourselves.
Very, very true. And to that point, I think that's why when people who have not traveled a similar path try to give you direction or advice, it doesn't land as well. I know they mean well, but it's often I find better to ask the person grieving, how can I help you, versus making an assumption. What would you say to that?
Yes. And even a lot of times asking the question, how can I help you? At times that might be met with overwhelmed response. So I think that you always need to at least try, if that's the sense that you're getting with that person, if you know them well enough or whatever the situation is. But also be prepared that they may not even know how you might be feeling. Their response might be, I don't know right now. I just don't know.
That is true. So when you hear Katie's name, what does that bring to mind besides that smile? What else? What are the thoughts that go through your mind or memories when you hear her name?
Oh, I miss her. And I miss our times together. The memories of our laughter and our talking and just being together. Our little routines, like when she'd come home from work, and that was usually starting dinner. She'd come in the back door, and as she came in, we'd hug each other and say, I love you, or welcome home. And it's also very deep, and the memories and the experience at the time while she was living. We were very close and very in tune with one another.
Okay.
Yeah, and the main thing you saw, I just can't help it, is the smile. That's what she does.
6 years later, the smile is still automatic.
Yeah.
Now, it's my understanding writing has always been your jam. It's a lifelong thing for you. Do you remember how you fell in love with writing?
I was a pretty shy kid. Some people might disagree with that, but for me, I felt more internal than external. So the one way that I could best just express myself or just get in touch with myself was through writing. And that was at a fairly young age. I would say by my very early teens, I was writing my form of poetry. It might not have been an acceptable form of poetry, but it worked for me. And people like, Emily Dickinson, of course, was a big, I may not have always understood her writing, but there was some connection because she was writing pretty deep stuff that I don't think the general public really connected to very often. Also, there was in the 70s and early 80s, there was an author named Hugh Prather. I don't know if you recognize that name. He had written a book called Notes to Myself. And what it was basically just these little writings he would do regarding him and his wife and their day-to-day stuff. And that's kind of what my book is like. And that's kind of what all of my writings are like. So, and when I saw his book, somebody had given it to me as a gift, I was like, oh, well, maybe I can write and be published. And, maybe this is an acceptable way to express myself and have people read.
Thank you for explaining that writing style. I also thought when I was reading that and thinking of the style in which you wrote in, when people are grieving in the throes of that profound grief, it's easier to have bite-sized information. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. I remember when my husband passed, there was one book I think I started reading like 44 different times. Like, I don't know if I ever got past page 2. The words would blur, the crying, the everything. So I thought the style that in which you were writing would actually be amenable to someone that has experienced profound grief and trying to take bite size and still feel like a sense of accomplishment that I finished this portion of it. And I was supposed to do something before we started to tell you the different parts of the book that we were going to cover. And we got to doing other stuff and I totally forgot. So I do apologize. But before we get into your book, tell us how you met Katie.
I'd like to say that the universe brought us together. We met later in life, and I was the first woman relationship that Katie was in. But I tell you, I've said this before, she didn't just come out of the closet, she burst out of it. She was just like, oh, and she was so happy and so embraced. And I've had people within her family say that they had never seen her so happy and so satisfied as they did when she met me. So that's the part of how we met that I like to talk about.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you feel the world you live in today gives you a safety to express your love and your loss?
As someone who grew up, came of age in the 70s with the first round of feminist and gay and gay and lesbian rights, today is very different from that time. Katie and I we were together for 23 years, and we were able to get legally married. So we were married for 6 years. But lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Uh,
Would you like me to repeat the question?
yeah.
Do you feel the day and time in which you are living gives you safety to be able to express your love and your loss for Katie?
Yes, in addition to our time together, and being lucky enough to be together during a time when we could legally marry. The other piece of that is, at that time we lived in Minneapolis, and it was a very progressive, open, safe city. So being together during that time versus, like I was saying, in the 70s, things had changed so much. However, I have, in the past, it was about 2.5 years ago now, I moved up north along the north shore of Minnesota into a small city, very rural, very, red and blue spots. And not to get too political, but with the current administration, I don't feel as safe as I did when he was alive. And in fact, it kind of takes me back to those days in the 70s when, I'd be walking down the street as a teenager wearing a hat and a fake leather jacket, and I would be called names just for doing that. So I'm much more cautious up here. But at the time of Katie's death, we were fortunate to have hospice that had no problem if they had a problem with our relationship. And they did a great job hiding it. But it felt to me genuinely like they accepted us. And it was a good experience. And it so could easily have not been. In a different place in the States, in a different time frame,
Thank you for sharing that. And for the people that are at odds or not as welcoming, what is something you think they are not realizing about you and your love for Katie?
Love is love. It just is love. It's the same for any two people who find it.
Thank you. So how did you turn this horrific moment, devastating pain, and bring your love to writing to share this story? What was the catalyst? How did that come about for you?
In March of 2023, I came up to the North Shore and I rented a one-room cabin for 10 days as a self-imposed writing retreat. And it was during that time that I wanted to get all of my writings together that I had done from 2020 to 2023. And the majority of those writings were about Katie. She had died in July of 2020 in the midst of the COVID pandemic and the isolation of that. It was during that time that I was thinking, I should put this into a book. And I think in the back of my mind, which you had said earlier, the idea of someone who's breathing, not being able to take in a whole lot when they're reading, I think that was in the back of my mind when I decided to do the book this way. And then after that, it just it felt like it was something bigger than me. And like I was along for the ride and just needed to stay out of my own way.
Thank you. Did this come from journals that you were keeping over the time or literally coming from your memory when you started writing?
They're all based on writings that I had done during that time. There might have been a couple that needed finishing, but I just scribbled down the majority of what I wanted to say. But it came from writings that I did. It came from after her death. Katie was a licensed psychologist in private practice for 25 years. So it was my job after she passed to close up her practice and things like that. So I still had her cell phone. And before I disconnected her cell phone, I would still send her a text. So some of them are texts and some of them are emails that I would send to her. It's kind of a variety of places.
Oh my gosh, you brought back a memory for me. I remember I was just sharing this with another, I don't know if it was a widow or someone, that I remember texting my late husband's phone until someone answered, and I was like, "Oh, I got to stop this," because I was just like, "Well, that's over."
Yeah.
I would call and leave messages, and then I was like, "Can I order Domino pizza or something?" Like when they picked up the phone, I was like, "All right, bye." That was it for me. But if my spouse had not passed, I would have been like, why are you doing that? But having been in that place, the relief, there's so many different reasons why it's necessary. And it may not be for everyone. For those that get it. And for those who don't, it's just not your cup of tea. Let's go to page 3 of your book. And my apologies, I do have it all posted out. We started talking and I forgot to tell you. You want me to give you all the pages now or just go one by one?
One by one is good.
Okay. If you would read everything, including the date.
It's titled Dark Circles. The dark circles under my eyes are not from lack of sleep. Sleeping is the easier part. No, the dark circles under my eyes are from grief and deep, unadulterated heartache. June 12, 2020.
Now, this is before, Katie is still here at this moment in time.
She had had 2 strokes in 10 days. The first one was June 3rd. And that one she pretty much recovered from. And I had some, aside from exhaustion, some memory and password issues, but then 10 days later, she had a larger stroke, which affected her ability to speak. So at the time this was written, she'd already had her first stroke, and we didn't know what it was. We didn't know if it was a stroke or a heart attack, was it a brain tumor, or some other weird thing. But it did spark a lot of deep conversations and, reviewing our legal documents and talking about, again, what we wanted and didn't want in terms of treatment, in terms of company, that type of thing. So this was just from after that first stroke.
The reality that the end could be sooner than believed. You used that time to start planning. What are some things that you would recommend to people in relationships or people caring for parents that you realize you're glad that you had the opportunity and they should leverage and do now if possible?
I think everybody, if they don't do their will, I say everyone should do that. But the bigger thing is a healthcare directive. And in that, being as specific as you can, letting the person that you choose to be your representative, letting them know what you want, how you want it to be treated, what you want to have happen in certain situations. Like with Katie, it was a little complicated by COVID because medical settings were still closed down. Basically, only the patient could go in, and then you couldn't visit them or be with them. And I think if Katie had had her second stroke and there wasn't COVID, she may have gone on to like another doctor to see what the options were. But I think also she would have made the same decision of no treatment. She didn't want to be dropped off somewhere and left there. And I didn't want her to be spending whatever time alone like that. So I think it's very important, if nothing else, that you do a living will or a healthcare directive, whatever you call it, and be as specific as possible. Name the person you feel most comfortable with, who you think will do the things that you want to do. Because once something happened, I've found it can be very easy to say, well, they're not really aware of it anymore, so I'm just going to listen to this other person. You can't. I can't. I couldn't. I was so determined to, because Katie trusted me, I was so determined to hold my word to her. As much as I may have hated it or didn't like it or didn't want it, and as much as somebody else may have thought, well, couldn't you have done this or this or this? No. This is what Katie wanted. This is what I needed to do.
There is something powerful in honoring the wishes of someone we love when they entrust us with something so valuable as their last wishes. We are the voice that they no longer have, and that is important. You mentioned about Katie passing during COVID. How has that factor of COVID, you feel, impacted your grief and maybe others?
For me, it was kind of as horrendous as COVID was. It gave me the opportunity and the space to just breathe, to be in my grief, to let myself feel whatever I was feeling, and not have to worry about somebody knocking on my door or somebody always wanting to come over or whatever. It just kind of created that space. And I appreciate that space because like I said, I'm an internal person, and I've always been aware of my feelings and my emotions and how I react to things. And so I really was able to just have that time. And for the first 2 years, I still texted and maybe FaceTime with someone, but it wasn't until after 2 years that I thought, okay, now I'm going to go out and start being a little more social, have coffee, have dinner or something. But for me, that the COVID had positive impact on my grief. For other people, I'm not so sure how they, how that felt for them. We were able to have an outdoor small gathering for her, which is what she wanted.
I'm glad you were able to have a service, because when I talk to some people, not having some of the cultural type things that we're accustomed to in the passing of a loved one can make it harder. Make a hard situation even harder. So I'm glad for you that you were able at least to honor that wish and be able to be supported by people who know you and knew Katie.
And we also, for people who lived in different places, one in Canada, across the United States, they Zoomed in. So we did a multi thing. So they could we could interact and, it was very informal.
Okay.
But yeah, it was nice to be able to do that.
Thank you. Page 7, please.
Just page 7?
Yep.
Because that is the ending of page 6.
No, I read that back and forth and I was like, okay, the title's right there, but that is a part Okay, you can read 6 and 7, but 7 was the powerful part for me. So yes, it is your book, 6 and 7.
That's what, yeah, I intentionally broke some of the sentences out for
I
that
thought so.
reason.
That's why I was hyper focused on that. My apologies.
So no problem. I'm glad you said that. So now people who read the book as a result of seeing your podcast will know that the date of the writing signifies the end.
And that
So
is
if
why it was important when as I told you in preparation, that wanting to the parts that I knew that had that weight to it.
You want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, since you mentioned it, now you have to. I mean, I messed up. You
Okay.
pointed it out. Now you're reading it all, Jackie.
I have to be quiet next time. I'm kidding. This one is Rainstorms and Rainbows. I was sitting on the bed with Katie, listening to what would be her last few breaths, when suddenly I heard what sounded like hail pounding on the roof. It turned out to be big, plump raindrops. I was excited because I knew how much Katie loved the sound of rain. "Sweetie," I exclaimed as I flung myself off the bed, "I think it's raining." I was so happy because I thought it would be peaceful for Katie to hear, that it would bring her joy and comfort. It reminds me of how the first rainstorm I ever really listened to. It was a late afternoon summer storm. We climbed onto the bed to listen as Katie told me how much she loved the sound and the smell of rain, the rumble of thunder. Excuse me. I, on the other hand, was afraid of storms, especially high winds and lightning. But that day, it was a gentle storm. As we lay listening and experiencing the sounds, I felt a deep sense of safety, of belonging, and so very much love for the woman next to me. It is one of my favorite first memories with her. On the day Katie died, just as she took her last breath, a steady downpour came, along with some gentle thunder. No wind, no lightning. The timing was impeccable. In fact, no rain or storms were forecasted that day. It seemed to have come out of nowhere and lasted only a few minutes. I believe it was Katie leaving. The accompanying rainbow told me she was okay. July 18, 2020.
How does this feel different to you now than the moment you wrote it?
It doesn't, in the sense that I feel it now as I did when I wrote it. And I remember that so clearly when it happened. It feels like I was able to capture the important parts of what was going on and then express what I really believed, which is it wouldn't doubt me. I wouldn't doubt it if Katie was that storm, if she transitioned from this life and just went into that gentle rainstorm. Some people may not believe things like that, but it just, to put it all together and to have been there in the moment, it was incredible.
This is your moment for you and Katie's story. It is not to be validated or approval. This is your conversation, sharing your moment in your life, and to be honoring that. They can go kick rocks. How does it feel now from when you had experienced it?
I guess now I don't feel as much pain as I did at the time. At the time, I felt both pain and love, and now I feel both pain and love. But the love is the bigger piece now. The pain was the bigger piece then.
That is important to hear. How do you think you made that shift to love being the bigger piece? Was it just a lapsing of time, or were there things that you did during the time that made that so?
I have a belief, and this is in the title of the book. I intentionally use the term living grief. And that's because I believe that's what we do. We don't put it off in a little corner, say, okay, we're done with that. No, we don't get over it or get through it. I think it walks with us. As I talk about in my book, I think it ages with us. And one of the surprising things for me when I was putting this book together was, at the time, I didn't see that love that was already there. And until I put the book together and I was reading through, and it was like, oh, now I see how grief and love can be in the same space, and how the love becomes, for me, it becomes stronger. My love for Katie and the bond we share just becomes deeper and stronger. But again, as you can tell by my smile, but that I think is I think time is part of it, but it's also intentionally living grief. And by that, I mean that it doesn't change, and you don't. I don't usually use these words, but it's not like you don't move forward or you don't get to a different place in your life. But I believe when you're living grief and you're honoring your grief, and in turn honoring the person who lost, the loved one you lost, that helps you move into the world in a more authentic self.
Thank you. For the person that's hearing that, but the pain is what they're comfortable with. And the idea of, what if I try that and it doesn't work? What would you say to them if you bumped into them in the grocery store and it just happened to come up and they just landed that on you? What would you say to them?
Well, my academic background is in psychology, so part of me immediately switches to the psychological bigger things going on. But I honestly believe that you will find it in yourself, and you will know when you find it. And it may take a while, and to not judge yourself for, not feeling it right away. It's like so many things with grief. I mean, we already get judged for moving too fast, not moving fast enough. Get over it. What are you doing? Why are you doing that now? They just, there's no winning in the way that our society currently deals with death. And so you really do need to find things that resonate with you. Find things that help you get into your deeper self.
Thank you.
And without any further information about that person, that's, I guess, what I would say.
Yep, it's a grocery store. We don't get the deep dive.
Yeah, okay.
Page number 43, please. Do you know this book by heart? Because the look on your face when I say some of these numbers are like, okay, I think she knows exactly what's on this page.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't.
It's okay. I am right now on the 5th review of my book, and I'm like, okay, and I'm still finding things. So It is an ever evolving process.
My smile just was when you asked me in the beginning if you wanted me to if you wanted to just go page by page, or if you wanted to give them all to me at once. I was thinking, this is where my brief brain still comes in. And I would not remember all of the page numbers. So,
Fine. So I'm glad it worked out this way.
okay, page 43.
Yes, ma'am.
Title is Year 1. Rattle around in a life without you is all I seem to do. 1 year, my sweetie. Good God, how can you be gone? July 3rd, 2021.
Did you have a concept of what 1 year would be like versus what it was?
In my head, I don't know how I got it, but I kind of had an idea of what the first 2 years would be like. What I realized was when I hit coming into the third year is I don't know what to expect anymore. Because the first year or two can be very intense in terms of your emotions, your experiences, flashbacks, memories. Plus, if you have to deal with legal things like probate and doing the will, getting the things settled, or even planning the funeral or memorial and all of that stuff. So for me, the first year and a half, probate ended up being a part of it, which was kind of frustrating because we both thought that we had set everything up so we wouldn't have to do probate. But there was a little surprise in the wings, so we ended up having to do that. So in my mind, that's kind of how I had the first 2 years. What I thought I would experience on the 1 year anniversary was everything all over again. The entire, from June 3rd to June 13th to July 20th or to July 3rd, because she died a month from the date of her first stroke. And so when that first year came, I think I was kind of fortifying myself of it's just going to go all through me again, every single piece of it, every day, every moment, right up to the end. And so I was a little surprised that that didn't happen. And it was like, oh, okay. So all of that didn't happen. I still have these deep feelings and I'm still in pain. But yeah, I didn't end up reliving everything. That's not to say those years, I wasn't reliving things. There's always things that, that coulda, woulda, shoulda. And the questioning of, did I do this right or why didn't I do this? And, that argument we had one time, why did we have that? And all of those things just come into your head. And it's crazy making.
It is. As we are recording this conversation, it is 8. And do you start thinking about the upcoming date in the future, or does it just surprise you? Like, oh yeah, like have you totally forgotten? Or are you consciously aware of the timeline?
I, in the beginning, was very tuned into keeping track of things. Like, anytime a Friday came up, because she died on a Friday, I was very aware of Fridays. Anytime a third and a Friday came together, like the day she died. In fact, yesterday was the 13th time since Katie died that the third fell on a Friday. By the way, I Googled that. I did not know that.
Okay.
But I did think.
Thank you for saving us.
I did.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I
People
do.
count different things. I'm like, okay.
But I was aware enough to know that it was falling on, Friday was falling on the 3rd. And that made me think, how many times has that happened since? And in looking that up, I discovered that this July 3rd, upcoming, will also be a Friday. And that's, I think, only happened like 2 times in the years.
Yeah, because the way the days change.
Yeah.
Do you recall or notice how each year has been different for you over the time?
I do, but not in terms of year to year. I very much live day to day or in the moment type thing.
Okay.
I try to be as intentional as possible. So I'm more of a in the moment person than I am a big picture type person.
That's fair. We have 2 more sections. And I'm going to make sure I'm paying attention and have this right. Page 89.
It's titled Living and Dying. It is true that dying is a part of living. It is equally true that living is a part of dying. Neither happens in a vacuum. October 2nd, 2022.
Do you recall what was going on to cause you to pen this?
Yes, it was, again, it goes back to our uncomfortableness as a society of talking about death and dying and its life issues. I think we're all familiar with the idea that death is a part of life. But the other piece of that is even when you're dying, you're living. And I don't think very many people realize that or bring that to light. Because it's kind of like when you're dying, there might be better these days, but it's like, okay, grandma's in the back room, leave her alone, she needs peace, she's dying. And it's like, no, she's still living. She lives as she is dying, just like we're dying as we live. That's just how it goes. So that was kind of the thing that was in my head when I wrote that.
Thank you. I actually had another post and I was like, Tina, what were you doing there? Trying to get myself straight.
Did you have any thoughts about that one?
I wanted to know what your thoughts were when you were writing, because it seemed a little different than the other parts of the book. And it gave me an interest to bring that out to the reader.
Mm.
The last section is page 105.
Mm. It's titled Life. Life is in the way of my grief. Does it not understand the toll of grief's demands? January 7, 2023.
What was going on? Like, what was getting in the way of what? Like trying to live and grief coming on? I told you in the beginning I was nosy. I needed tea. So this definitely drew me in. I was like, what was getting in the way? What's happening here? As life, as you say, not always trying to use these words, but as we continue living, it can be complex, the duality of it all.
So 2023, part of this, part of the pieces in my book and part of the reason that I dated the pieces, or I included the date, is to show that grief is not linear, that it can come and go and track back and jump ahead all over the place. I think this was one of those moments where, you know, that very well could have been written 3 days after Katie died, and all I want to do is sit and cry. But life is saying, no, you have to keep doing this and this and this. So I think that piece was about 2.5 years later. I'm still feeling my grief, and the days can still be hard. And I get sometimes tired of life taking me away from my grief. It's like some days not being able to balance grief and life as well as other days.
Is that still a challenge today?
I would say it is at times, yes. And, grief is universal, but we all experience it individually. We all have our own experience with it and with what happened. It can be repetitive. And again, you can think, it's been 2.5 years and I'm feeling this way. I'm not making any progress. I'm not moving on. I'm not getting over this, and so those days can be hard and those times can be hard. And just acknowledging and knowing that, that can happen can help. Especially somebody who may be early in their grief or just beginning year or two into it. Just to know that that's what grief is. That's how it is. That's how life is.
Thank you. For the person reading a memoir of love, loss, and living grief, losing Katie, what do you want them to take away from this story?
We've touched on a couple things. Mostly, it is a love letter to Katie, as odd as that may sound. It's in honor of her. It's in honor of my grief. And it's also with hope that others will read it and maybe see a piece in it that helps them, maybe not feel as alone, or maybe helps them understand some piece about grief. It might not be the same situation of being in a same-sex marriage or relationship, but that doesn't mean the book is very much feelings. I don't know if you picked up on that.
No, not at all. No, didn't pick up. Was that really? Huh.
No, you're just going to miss that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Way over my head.
Because all of my writings are personal. And they're all very in the moment, down and dirty, in the grief, in the sadness, in the trauma. And that's one thing that, if I may say, as I wrote, that's what I like about it. That's what I like about my writing, is that it's relatable.
Okay.
And there's one thing, if I could quick. I came across this interview with Joni Mitchell on my Facebook. It's from June 11, 2013. And she's talking about kind of fame or music or all of that stuff wrapped together. And she says, if you listen to my music and you see me, you're not getting anything out of it. If you listen to that music and you see yourself, it'll probably make you cry and you'll learn something about yourself. And now you're getting something out of it. So although my book might be about me, it might be about Katie, the most important piece of it for me is how do you feel? What do you get out of it? Not what do you learn about me or anything like that. I mean, those all come kind of hand in hand, but just it's for the reader.
Mm. And where can the reader find your book?
It's available most places. I have them all listed. I have links on my website. It is in ebook and print format. So shop.org, Barnes& Noble, Amazon.com, any of those online stores. And you can probably, for most places, you can go to your local bookstore and ask them to order it. They should be able to get it.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share this book with our community. I like to give my guests the opportunity to be the podcast host. Any questions you have of me?
I do have a question. I am very impressed with all of the work that you're doing in your organization. Where did you get that energy or the skills to put all of this together? But did it come just after the death of your husband, or?
That's a good question. No one has ever asked me that. So, I was raised by my parents in Chicago. My dad was a veteran. He was worked for the city of Chicago in different facets, retired as a police officer. My mother was in the medical field, and once they started having a family, she stayed home full time. So, come from a very structured background. I was in the Army for 21 years. So I'm very structured. Been in leadership roles, as a civilian, worked in Iraq. I've been in different leadership roles as a minister at church. So organization, I think, is one of my giftings. And quietly listening to what people need and slipping into the opportunity when we can do something about it. Two of those things look like our Children of Widowhood Secret Santa, that children who have lost one or both parents, starting June 1st, the registration process starts. That was something I wanted to do, but didn't have the bandwidth. But two widows came to me and said, we'd like to do this. Would your nonprofit sponsor as we do the program? And I was like, yes. And I had to go to the board members and get their approval. So it's not me. It's having an organization that makes itself available to support those who are grieving. We are in the process of starting a memorial garden. We just have the outline of that on our website. And that is an amazing way to create quiet spaces, benches, gardens, in a place where we also host the annual butterfly release ceremony to give people a quiet place, because everybody's not ready for therapy. Everybody's not ready for a grief support group. But the need to connect, the need to know that I'm not alone in a space that I'm comfortable with is extremely powerful. And the other thing, that my birthday is in May, so that has been an annual fundraiser, because when you have a nonprofit, you need money to do the things for people that resonate with the effort that you're doing. So my birthday has been the month of a fundraiser. So I've told people I don't want gifts. If you could donate to the organization, and that's caused them to see, like, I knew she was doing something, but I didn't know this is what it was. And so making that the reality has given more awareness to the organization and different things that we do. And being in community with other widows, widowers, and people who are grieving, it gives them some piece of ownership when they have a part. We have a widower that leads our men's only grief support meeting. We have some other widows that manage our private Facebook group. So all those pieces are really helpful, because it brings meaning sometimes to people who feel like they don't have meaning anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Thank you. Maybe I should talk about how you can help. Get you involved.
No.
Any other questions?
No, that was the one that I was just like in awe of all you had set up, and I just was looking at your podcast and things like that. And that's kind of how I started learning the different things that you do. It's just amazing.
Thank you. And the podcast and content on social media is usually the gateway that people find out, and they think it's just a podcast or something. Then it's like, oh, there are other things, because this one widow mentioned, she said, we experience pain on an individual level, but we heal in community. And there's something to be said about that. Yes, we may need our moments of isolation, but there's power in connecting with other people in a healthy way, and being able to navigate this space. And I have found that extremely helpful. So I try to promote that. So not hyper focused on me, but different ways of connecting other people to be able to make that gap in what people need.
Right.
Well, I would like for you to finish this conversation. Maybe there's something we didn't cover or something you would like to wrap up, but final thoughts to the people that joined us on this conversation.
Really, despite the fact that I'm not excited about being in the widowhood, I'm very glad that I was able to be a part of your podcast and that you took the time to read my book and we had a chance to talk about it more. I've been doing some other podcasts and we don't really talk about the book as much as we talk about grief and that type of thing. So I appreciate the time to talk a little more about it in depth.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.